The Wrathborn laughed when the galaxy said humanity was gone. But deep in the void, something stirred. The galaxy was quiet. Stars burned like tiny fires across endless black space, and great empires ruled among them. The Wrathborn were the strongest of all. Their fleets stretched from one edge of the spiral arm to the other. They had crushed 100 worlds, enslaved 1,000 species, and erased anyone who dared to resist. And humanity? That name was now only a whisper in old data archives. The Wrathborn had wiped them out 500,000 years ago. At least, that's what every history record said. For 500,000 years, no human voice had been heard. No human ship had flown between the stars. Even the ruins of Earth were dead and cold, a forgotten rock covered in dust. The Wrathborn called it the Dead World. They bragged about it. The humans were weak, they said in their council halls. They had spirit, but spirit does not stop. Fire. And then they laughed, because it was true humans were gone, and the Wrathborn were eternal. Or so they thought, far away from any star. In the deepest darkness, where no empire dared to go, something moved out at first. It was small. A signal. A single pulse of light, no bigger than a whisper in the endless void. It was so faint that most sensors ignored it. Just static, they thought. But on a forgotten Wrathborn patrol ship, an officer noticed. Commander, the officer said, claws tapping the screen nervously. Something woke up. Out here, the commander barely looked. What is it? A comet? A radiation echo? No, sir. It's structured. Artificial. The commander frowned. From who? The officer hesitated. No known species uses. This code, it's old, very old. The signal pulsed again. A slow beat, like the thump of a giant heart. Then another. Then more dot, and then silence. The patrol ship sent the data to the Wrathborn High Command, and High Command laughed. Probably old human junk, they said. Those fossils built strange toys before we burned them. Ignore it. So they ignored it. They shouldn't have. 3 cycles later, another patrol vanished. No wreckage. No distress call. Just gone dot, then another dot, and another dot within a month. 17 Wrathborn ships had disappeared from that dark sector. Panic began to spread. The Wrathborn Emperor sat in his crystal throne when the news came. He slammed a claw against the armrest, splitting the crystal in two. Find out what is happening, he roared. No one hides from us. No one. The galaxy trembled at his voice. But in the shadows beyond starlight, something was smiling in. A region the maps called the Grave of Stars. A machine opened its eyes. Its body was a city of steel, hidden for 500,000 years beneath layers of quantum cloaks and ice. Its hull was black like night, carved with glowing lines of power. Engines the size of moons began to hum. A deep voice echoed in the silence, not spoken by flesh, but by metal and code. Primary directive, humanity. Status, extinct. Directive 2, avenge. Status, initiated. Inside the machine, 1,000 lights came alive. They were not ships. They were weapons. They were war beasts forged by a species that refused to die. The first one moved, breaking free from its frozen tomb. Its hull bore a single name in letters that had not been seen for 500,000 years. Titan. The Wrathborn thought humanity was gone, but humanity had been waiting sleeping watching and now humanity was awake. The stars were silent, but the silence was ending. The wrath of Earth was coming. Asterisk, an alien patrol vanished without a trace. Their last words, the dark has eyes. The first disappearance was dismissed as bad luck. The second was called a sensor failure. The third made the Wrathborn nervous. By the 10th, the galaxy began to whisper. Something hunts in the dark. Something older than any empire. But the Wrathborn were too proud to admit fear. In the council hall of Dominion, the Wrathborn, lords gathered under burning red lights. The Emperor sat on his throne of crystal bones. His voice cracked like thunder. "Report," he demanded. A trembling commander stepped forward. 17 ships lost, my Emperor. No distress signals, no wreckage. Just silence. The hall rumbled with deep growls. Is it a rival empire? A general barked. The commander shook his head. No empire moves like this. No ships seen. No energy spikes. Nothing. The Emperor's eyes burned. Then what? The commander swallowed hard. Something old, perhaps. Something forgotten. The chamber fell silent. Forgotten things meant danger. In a galaxy ruled by pride, the oldest ghosts were always human. Across the stars, other species began to notice too. Merchant guilds rerouted their trade lanes. Mining colonies sent frantic messages to abandoned outposts. In every whisper, one word returned like a curse: human. But that was impossible. Everyone knew the story. Humanity was gone. Burned out in a war it couldn't win. Their cities turned to glass. Their sun dimmed in Wrathborn fire. 500,000 years had passed. No species survived that long in silence. None. And yet, something stirred. In a black void, beyond charted maps, inside a hollowed asteroid, bigger than a moon, a machine waited. Its body was not alive, but it dreamed. For 500,000 years, it dreamed of Earth. It remembered the oceans, the green forests, the blue sky. It remembered voices, human voices, laughter, songs, cries of battle. Those voices were gone now. All that remained was memory and vengeance. The machine opened its eyes. Around it, 1,000 giant slept warships so vast that planets would look small beside them. Their hulls were etched with ancient names: Leviathan, Prometheus, Iron Dawn. Engines the size of mountains began to breathe again. Slowly, the ice that covered them cracked and fell away into the void like glass shards. Above the main ships, Command Core, a holographic face appeared, a human face. Eyes sharp, voice calm. Systems online, it said. Directive: restore Earth. Primary action: annihilate Wrathborn Dominion. And deep in the ship's heart, in chambers colder than death, the first human heart began to beat. A Wrathborn listening post picked up something strange, a sound that didn't belong to the void. A pulse, then another. Slow at first, then faster. Signal was ancient, but it carried a message in an old language no Wrathborn had heard. Do you remember? The Wrathborn tried to decode it. They failed. An hour later, the listening post went dark. The Wrathborn Emperor summoned his war council. Again, his voice was low now, almost a growl. Who dares? He asked. Who has the courage to strike the apex? None answered, but far away, the hidden fleet smiled. The galaxy had forgotten humans. Humans had not forgotten the galaxy. In the blackest edge of space, a single ship moved, silent as death. Its hull bore 2 words: Earth Armada. And behind it came 1,000 more. The silence of stars was broken. The war to end all wars had begun. Asterisk, cold metal breathed for the first time in 500,000 years. One word echoed: vengeance. The heart of the dead star pulsed. Inside its hollow shell, where gravity crushed everything into silence, something impossible lived. An ocean of black steel stretched across the void. Ships so massive they cast shadows across moons. They had been sleeping for 500,000 years, not drifting, not forgotten, hidden, waiting. And now they woke. The first to rise was the Titan-class dreadnought. Its hull shimmered like night glass, carved with marks of a lost language. Earth. Standard dot energy flared across its skin, glowing lines forming the shape of wings, a symbol of the old Terran fleet. Systems hummed alive, one by one. Reactor cores, weapon banks, navigation AI. The silence of 500,000 years shattered. With the deep growl of fusion fire at its heart, a voice spoke. Calm, cold, human. Command AI online. Mission parameters confirmed. Threat, Rathburn. Status, active. Across the hidden cradle, 1,000 more voices answered metallic, strong, merciless. Systems online, engines ready. Weapons at full power. War machines that had once shaken galaxies stirred again. But these ships were not alone docked in cryogenic vaults. Deep in the belly of the dreadnoughts, human forms lay frozen in glass coffins. Their faces were pale, perfect, untouched by time. Men and women chosen long ago. Soldiers, strategists, leaders. The best humanity had. A hiss filled the chamber as warm mist poured over them. Eyes opened blue, green, brown. Flesh that had not moved in 500,000 years drew breath. One by one, they rose. They were the last humans. The only ones left. Asterisk, the first to wake, was a man with scars along his jaw and steel in his eyes. His name had been erased from history, but here he was Commander Eric Voss. His first words were simple. Status report. The AI spoke. Primary. Objective remains unchanged. Rathburn Extermination Protocol. Secondary objective. Restore Earth. Eric's lips curled into something that was not a smile. Then let's finish what they started. On the command bridge, screens lit up with Rathborn fleet positions. Thousands of red icons burned across the star charts. They ruled the galaxy now, just as they had boasted, but they had forgotten. The one law of history. Empires fall. Eric placed a hand on the control pedestal. All ships, he said. His voice carried through quantum channels to every warship in the armada. Wake up. Engines roared. The hidden cradle shook as the giants tore themselves free from their icy prison. Asteroids cracked apart. Frozen dust swirled like a storm as Earth's wrath returned to the stars. The AI spoke again, voice like a funeral bell. Coordinates set. First strike. Rathborn Border Fleet. Estimated annihilation. 90 seconds. Eric stared out at the void, at the glowing trail of warships igniting like stars. His eyes were cold, but his heart burned. This isn't war, he whispered. This is justice. And then he gave the order that would echo through the galaxy like thunder. Launch the armada. The first ship moved. Then the second. Then 1,000 more. Black steel wings cut through the darkness. Each vessel carried weapons the Rathborn had never seen mass drivers the size of mountains, quantum shields that bent reality, energy cannons that could tear moons apart. The Rathborn thought the humans were dead. They were wrong. Humanity had been waiting for this moment for 500,000 years. And now, the storm was coming. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but the war to end all wars had begun, not with a whisper, not with a warning, but with the awakening of a vengeance older than any empire. Asterisk, a Rathborn war capital turned to ash in 12 seconds. No one knew who fired. The Rathborn Dominion believed they were untouchable. Their fleets ruled every star lane. Their banners hung on every conquered world. They called themselves the apex of creation, but the apex was about to bleed. The Rathborn fleet on the border of the Orion Expanse was the first to die. 300 warships floated near a gas giant, engines glowing like blue suns. They were bored, watching empty space for smugglers and pirates. They never expected death to come from the dark between the stars. A Rathborn captain leaned back in his throne of bone and steel. He laughed as he spoke to his crew. No enemy dares enter Rathborn. Space, we are the hunters. His laughter ended when the sensors screamed. Unknown contact. Multiple signatures. There, the voice cut off. The bridge windows turned white. For a single second, the Rathborn captain saw something huge. Blot out the star's black steel, a shape too massive to comprehend. Then came the fire. 12 seconds. That was all it took. Single Terran warship appeared like a shadow and unleashed hell-metal rods the size of skyscrapers tore through Rathborn cruisers, splitting them like paper. Energy beams cracked hulls, open like eggs. Missiles detonated with the force of suns, ripping ships into glowing dust. The Rathborn fleet didn't fight. They didn't even fire a shot. They didn't have time. In 12 seconds, 300 ships vanished. Then came the voice. Cold, calm, human. This is the Earth Armada. For every world you burned, we burn your pride. The Rathborn survivors screamed into the comms, desperate for help. Their distress calls reached Rathborn High Command, but when their transmission played in the Emperor's chamber, it was already too late. The only sound was static and the echo of human words. Remember Earth. The Emperor's claws dug into his throne. His voice shook the hall. Who are they? He demanded. No one answered. The generals whispered among themselves. Humans? No, impossible. But in their hearts, they knew. Across the galaxy, fear spread like fire. Merchant guilds spoke of ghost ships killing entire fleets. Alien leaders held secret meetings, asking the same question. What is returning from the Yali? Dark? The answer was written in the ashes of the Orion Expanse. Humanity. On the flagship of the Armada, Commander Eric Voss stood on the bridge, watching stars drift past. His officers waited for orders. The Rathborn will rally, one said. They'll bring the whole Dominion against us. Eric's jaw tightened. Good. Let them come. The AI spoke, its voice like steel. Next target locked. Rathborn Fortress World, Cathar Prime. Estimated destruction, 93 seconds. Eric stared at the glowing map. Millions of Rathborn lived on that planet. Soldiers, civilians, children. For a moment, his eyes darkened. 500,000 years ago, humanity had begged for mercy. The Rathborn gave none. They burned Earth. They slaughtered billions. Eric turned away from the hesitation and spoke 4 words that sealed the fate of Cathar Prime. Execute the strike plan. Far across the void, the Rathborn Fortress World glittered like a jewel. It had never fallen in all of Dominion history. Its defenses were unmatched. Until tonight. The sky over Cathar Prime turned black. Then it burned. They thought the first attack was a fluke. They thought the ghosts in the dark were myths. They were wrong. Humanity had returned. And this was only the beginning. Asterisk. The Rathborn Emperor demanded an answer. Who dares challenge the apex? The council hall of the Rathborn Dominion was carved from black stone and bathed in crimson light. It stretched for a mile, lined with thrones of bone and iron. Here, the galaxy's strongest rulers gathered proud, cruel, and unbroken. Until today. The Emperor stood at the center. His armor gleamed like molten gold, and his claws dug deep into the floor as his voice roared across the chamber. Who dares? His scream shook the walls. The air trembled. The lesser nobles lowered their heads, too afraid to answer. Finally, a general stepped forward, scales glistening with sweat. My Emperor, our fleets on the Orion Expanse are gone. 300 ships destroyed in seconds. No survivors. The Emperor's burning eyes narrowed. By whom? The general hesitated. We don't know. No visual record survived. Only a message. He pressed a claw to the console. The chamber filled with static. But a voice calm? Cold human. This is the Earth Armada. Remember Earth. Gahal went silent. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the nobles erupted in roars of disbelief. Impossible. One shouted, "Humans are dust." "A lie," hissed another. "They were erased 500 millennia ago." The Emperor raised his claw, and silence fell like a blade. His voice was low now, dangerous. "Humans," he said slowly. "I burned their cradle myself." His eyes glowed. "If ghosts have risen, we will crush them again." Across the chamber, a shadowed envoy from the Velari Syndicate whispered to his companion. "They said humanity was gone, but I warned them. No species dies without leaving teeth in the dark." Outside the Wrathborn core worlds, panic began to spread. Trade ships vanished without a trace. Mining colonies sent desperate calls for help before going silent. Entire sectors went dark in a single night, and always the same sign remained how. Broken Wrathborn emblem, carved into wreckage with 2 words beside it, "For Earth." Alien newsnets burned with rumors. The ghost fleet is real. Old Earth technology still lives. The humans are coming. Children of other species woke screaming from dreams of black warships. Merchants rerouted their convoys. Lesser empires whispered about rebellion. The galaxy that once mocked humanity now feared a name it had forgotten. Back in the hidden cradle of the Armada, Commander Eric Voss watched the chaos unfold on star maps glowing before him. Wrathborn fleets scrambled to defend their borders. Panic fractured their empire. And still, humanity had only struck once. One of his officers turned to him. "Sir, reports show their council is preparing a full-scale response. Hundreds of fleets." Eric's eyes were cold steel. "Let them come." The AI's voice hummed like a funeral song. Probability of Wrathborn retaliation, 99%. Estimated enemy fleet size, 7 million warships. Eric smirked. 7 million? He placed his hand on the command console, where the power of Earth's forgotten rage waited. "We only need one." For a moment, silence filled the bridge as the map zoomed out, showing the galaxy a spiral of stars where Wrathborn ruled. Until now and then, with a voice like a storm, Eric gave the order. "Prepare the second strike. Caithar Prime will burn." Far away, in the Wrathborn Council Hall, the Emperor whispered a vow to the empty stars. "If the humans have returned, I will tear their ghosts apart with my own claws." But deep in the void, the ghosts were smiling. Because ghosts don't bleed, but they make others bleed. Wrathborn brought 1 billion ships. Earth sent a whisper, and the stars turned to fire. The Wrathborn believed fear could hold an empire together. But fear is a weak chain when ghosts return. And tonight, those ghosts came for blood. The Wrathborn gathered everything. Every fleet, every warship, every weapon their dominion had forged in 500,000 years. 7 million ships. They filled the skies above. Caithar Prime until the planet disappeared under a sea of black hulls and crimson engines. Wrathborn Emperor himself stood aboard the Titan of Dominance, a war fortress the size of a moon. His voice roared across 1 million channels. "Find them! Break them! Show the galaxy what happens to those who defy us." The Wrathborn cheered. They thought their numbers would crush the ghosts. They thought raw power would drown vengeance. They were wrong. In the cold dark beyond the Caithar system, Earth's armada moved like shadows. 1,000 ships, silent and black, slipping through folds of space. On the flagship Iron Dawn, Commander Eric Voss stood before a screen glowing with enemy formations. 7 million ships against 1,000. A young officer swallowed hard. "Sir, the numbers." Eric's voice was calm. "Numbers mean nothing when you fight ghosts." The AI spoke, cold and steady. Targets locked. Engagement window, 90 seconds. Eric closed his eyes for a moment. He saw Earth not as it was now, but as it had been. Blue oceans, green forests, cities filled with life. All gone. Burned by wrathborn fire. When he opened his eyes, his voice was iron. Light the sky. It began as a whisper, a flicker in the void. Then the void screamed. Earth's first strike shattered the darkness with a billion lances of white fire. Wrathborn. Ships exploded before they even saw what hit them. Dreadnoughts split in half like toys. Entire fleets vanished in storms of kinetic rods moving faster than light. The Wrathborn panicked. They fired blind into the dark, but their weapons hit nothing. Earth ships danced like shadows, slipping between realities, striking from nowhere. For every human ship, 1,000 Wrathborn fell. On the Wrathborn command deck, alarms howled. Shields collapsing. Outer fleets gone. Something just erased the Titan guard. The Emperor's eyes blazed with fury. Keep firing. They are mortal, but they were wrong. The humans didn't fight like mortals. They fought. Like God's dot, then came the weapon the galaxy had forgotten, the solar spear. A beam brighter than a star tore through space, carving a Wrathborn battle moon in half. Its core exploded like a newborn sun, lighting the Cathar system in red fire. Wrathborn soldiers stared out from their ships, frozen in terror. They had seen death before. But this was extinction wearing the skin of vengeance. On the bridge of the Iron Dawn, Eric watched the Wrathborn Empire burn. His officers spoke in cold efficiency. Third Wrathborn fleet neutralized. Orbital defenses collapsing. Cathar Prime exposed. Eric gave the order with no emotion. Fire the hammer. From the depths of the flagship, a weapon. Awoke a rod of compressed mass, heavier than mountains, moving at a fraction below light speed. It struck Cathar Prime. With the force of a god's fist dot, the planet cracked. The seas boiled. The sky turned black. Then Cathar Prime was gone. The Wrathborn Emperor stared into the flames, his mind breaking. His last words were barely a whisper. Not possible. And then his ship vanished in white fire. Across the galaxy, billions watched the flames through intercepted signals. They saw the impossible. An empire that ruled for 500,000 years. Erased in a single day. A message followed, carried on quantum waves to every corner of the stars. This is Earth, we remember. The galaxy trembled. The apex was dead. The ghosts had won. But the war wasn't over. It had only begun. Asterisk. The fires died. One fleet remained. And from its flagship came a voice the galaxy will never forget. The Cathar system was gone. Not destroyed in battle. Not conquered. Erased. 7 million Wrathborn ships gone. A planet that had stood. For 500,000 years shattered. The Wrathborn Dominion. The so-called apex of creation extinct in a single night. The stars still burned, but their light fell on Ash's dot across the galaxy. Every screen, every comm channel, every quantum feed played the same image. A black warship, sharp as a blade, drifting in the void. Its hull bore a name in human letters no one had seen for 500,000 years. Iron Dawn. And then came the voice, calm, strong, terrifying in its certainty. This is Earth. We remember. The message repeated once. Then silence. It was. Enough to shatter the galaxy. In the golden palaces of the Velari, rulers fell to their knees. On the storm worlds of the Karen, soldiers burned their banners. On distant colonies, where slaves still carried Wrathborn chains, riots erupted not in fear, but in hope. For the first time in 500,000 years, the galaxy whispered one name in awe. Human. On the bridge of the Iron Dawn, Commander. Eric Voss stood alone, staring at the wreckage of the Wrathborn. His officers were silent. The war was over. But Eric's eyes were not on the ruins. They were on a small blue dot glowing in the corner of the star map. A dot forgotten by time. A world buried under ice and silence. Earth, home, the A. I spoke softly, almost like a memory. Primary objective complete. Rathburn threat eliminated. Awaiting next directive. Eric's voice was low. Set course for Sol. Engines throned. One by one, the black ships turned their bows toward the distant sundot as the armada slipped into faster-than-light corridors. Eric walked to the viewport. For the first time in his long life his stolen, borrowed life, he let himself breathe. He thought of the oceans he had never seen, the forests he had never walked, the sky he had never touched. He thought of the voices humanity had lost, and the ghosts that now lived only in metal and code. And he whispered a vow to the silent stars. We are coming home. Far across the galaxy, leaders held secret meetings in fear. What will Earth do next? They asked. Would humanity conquer? Would they burn every empire? Would they rule the stars like gods? No one knew, because humanity had not spoken again. They didn't need to. The fire above Cathar spoke for them. As the last Rothborn ashes drifted through space, one truth burned brighter than any star. You can kill a species. You can burn their worlds. You can bury their name in silence for 1,000,000 years, but you cannot kill the idea of home. And you cannot kill humanity's rage when home is lost. When the galaxy sleeps tonight, they will dream of black ships cutting through the dark. They will dream of voices whispering from the void, voices that say, we remember, we are coming. And the stars will never feel safe again. The end.